Hello and welcome to another episode of the ExpertCPG Commerce Podcast. My name is Ryan Flynn, the founder and CEO of ExpertCPG Commerce, where we help brands reach more customers on Amazon and beyond. And on today's show, I'm really excited to welcome Kit Maxfield. Kit is the Chief Marketing Officer at Motherlode Co-packing. And so Motherlode is a contract manufacturer based in the Denver area, and Kit's going to tell you about his origin story and how he helped start Motherlode and kind of who they are today and who they help. And he offers like a ton of value to brands, like, you know, what to look for, how to choose that first contract manufacturer, then like when do you know you're ready to move on, and some of the pitfalls to avoid along the way. So tons of value from Kit in this episode. So make sure you stay tuned and take some notes as you listen here. And if you're a brand that's growing and you're trying to figure out how to do everything and do it all well, you're most likely also trying to figure out Amazon. And that's what we do here at ExpertCPG is we help brands with Amazon. We do the strategy and execution for brands, essentially being their outsourced Amazon department. And a lot of brands are just wondering, am I doing everything I could be on Amazon? Like, am I pulling all the levers? Am I pulling all the right levers hard enough and in the right direction and all that stuff, right? So we get those kind of concerns and questions a lot from brands we speak with. One of the things we offer is an audit, actually, where we can show brands, you know, not just tell you what you could be doing on Amazon, but show you what you could be doing on Amazon. So if you just go to expertcpg.com/audit, you can fill in some information there, see if you qualify, and we'd be happy to perform an in-depth account audit. There's no obligation or anything like that. We'd love to just actually show you our value and show you what we can do. A lot of brands see a tremendous value in that and just say, yes, help us. And so, but again, we want to be able to show this to you. And so again, expertcpg.com/audit, fill in the info, and we'll get back to you. We have a limited number of these spots we do, because we do provide a lot of value and then we go in depth on these audits. So would love to, help you and see if we can help your brand on Amazon. Let's get on to the show with Kit from Motherlode Co-packing. Hey, Kit, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Yourself?
Great, thank you. Thanks for being on today. Super excited to have a co-packer on the show, a co-packing company on the show. Obviously, that is a intricate world, right? We were just talking about before we started hitting recording. There's enough to keep you busy there as there is for us with Amazon. And would love to just obviously unpack today, your industry experience, kind of where you came from, starting Motherlode, and then like kind of just talking kind of all things co-packing. So yeah, take us back to to maybe your career, just a quick synopsis of your history. So I'm sure that plays into a lot of your experience at Motherlode.
Yeah, absolutely. Went to Kansas State University for marketing, did not do very well. And the university asked me to take a little hiatus for a second. So I took some other classes like biology and stuff at local community college and really loved it. Ended up graduating with a great GPA in biology, just fell in love with it. Got into the outdoor recreation business right after college and did that for 4 or 5 years and met my business partner now, Greg Dennis, who's our CEO, and became great friends. He recruited me to a sauce manufacturing company, knowing that I worked my way through college at restaurants, working on the line, very comfortable with food, working on the saute side and grill side at fancy restaurants. And he brought me on board to work for him, product development and business development, a co-packer. And we had about 60% of our business is contract manufactured products, and the other 40% was branded. And we had about 12 brands that we owned under that company. Did that for many years, learned the business at a separate facility, really cut our teeth on it. I think at that facility, we launched probably 10,000 different products over the years that we worked there. The owner unfortunately passed away. We helped the owner's wife sell the company, stuck around for a little bit of time, and then just for cultural reasons, didn't want to stick around with that company. So we started Motherlode. Said, hey, we've learned all of these things, how to do it right, how to do it wrong. Took everything that we learned over the years, used that as like Motherlode 1.0, and applied that, bought a building in 2018 in Hudson, Colorado. And since then, we've been building out different manufacturing lines, adding on capacity, definitely adding on employees and additional square footage. We did a 20,000 square foot build out just to handle more raw materials. Turn raw materials into finished goods, get it out the door. That's our game. We don't own any brands at Motherlode. We're just strictly a contract manufacturer, private label manufacturer, and focus on that. Like we were talking before the camera was rolling, dealing with Amazon is enough, right? And for us, dealing with contract manufacturing, it's enough. So the brand side is a totally other thing, and we just want to do what we can to support them so that they can go out and sell as many bottles as possible, which is our mutual goal. And as long as we're focusing on that and coming to alignment with our customers, it creates a great environment.
Yeah, sounds like it. So great backstory and history there. And obviously, sounds like the biology stuff, the marketing and biology combo.
Yeah,
I'm sure
didn't work out in marketing, but now that's my title. But I still don't.
No, but I was going to say.
I'm just a dumb sales guy. That's all it is.
That's what I am sometimes, most days as well. I get it.
What are acronyms? What are titles?
Yeah, But it's about the experience, right? And learning that biology side and then really enjoying it and being like, obviously finding your career path through it. For sure. That's pretty unique. So you mentioned at the previous facility, 10,000 different products. So just walk us through. You have a lot of, not only the episodes, but obviously with Motherlode too, like what are the key things that make a relationship work between a brand and a co-packer or a manufacturing facility like yours? Like what are the key ingredients, no pun intended, needed to make that work?
I think it's how you view the relationship's the biggest thing, and it needs to be looked upon like your co-packer is the operations of your business and you're the sales and marketing. It can't be a transactional relationship. It has to be a collaborative relationship. And honestly, co-packing should represent like collaborative packing versus contract packing, because that's really what it's about. And I found that when brands look at a co-packer as a screwdriver versus a partner, it does not work. And honestly, that mindset is not going to help them in other aspects of their business as well.
Right.
That I think that overall outlook on that relationship needs to be taken with, when a co-packer does something for you, you need to be gracious of that. And just as the co-packer, if you're getting into a bunch of stores and you're hustling, the co-packer needs to be gracious of you of going out and really performing. And what I find in typically startups is those CEOs, those founders don't necessarily understand that, that the co-packer doesn't need your business. They want to create a business with you. That's probably the biggest thing. Money has been such a big deal lately, SVB and all of that stuff, getting funding for growth, getting into, some of these national retailers really don't understand what it actually costs to do that. And I've never asked a customer to show me their P&L prior to us working on a project with them, but I'm almost getting to that point.
Yeah.
I'm almost to that point, and that's never really been a thing. And, I was in business in 2008 when the markets were all hooey. It's similar now, and business is really good. It's great, even in those downturns, but the propensity for private equity and even, family offices or high net worth individuals to invest in food brands is pretty tough right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an interesting time as we record this in August of 24, and who knows, obviously, talking about interest rate cuts here soon, and who knows what's going to happen to obviously the upcoming election, and who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Who knows what's going to go on, right?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing, right, is you just got to be prepared for no matter what, and just keep, there's only, I'm a big fan of, there's only so many things you can control, right? Like, you can't worry about the things you cannot control. You just got to kind of adapt and overcome them. And I'm sure some of those relate to co-packing. So when would like a brand come to seek out you guys? Like, when would it be like a startup brand, or do you guys like prefer to have somebody kind of have something more like already formulated on, and like where's the kind of the range of that?
That's a really good question. I think if somebody, Bubba Joe, and he's come up with this new thing that he thinks is just the bee's knees, and his grandma thinks it's awesome, somewhere after that, there's smaller co-packers in every city. There's usually 2 or 3 of them, and they can do an 80-gallon bag. We're strictly a liquids manufacturer, so we make things like barbecue sauce, hot sauce, curry, salsa, enchilada sauce, even like chai tea concentrate, syrups, hot honey, all of that. liquid stuff that can be pumpable. So that's kind of the world that we play in. So if Bubba Joe's created, Bubba Joe's barbecue sauce and he thinks it's just the next big thing, he should probably start with a proof of concept with some of the smaller co-packers who kind of blow the cobwebs out of it for a second. Now, this is somebody who's never been in food before. So they're trying to figure out, in my opinion, customers walking by the shelf and the brand has to grab them first. That's the most important thing. They need to know what they're looking at in a fraction of a second and understand it. Then they're going to look at the price point and say, does this cool thing that I just saw justify the price that I saw after that?
Yep.
And those two things, then and only then are they going to try your product. So like the least important thing is what it tastes like. Now they're not going to buy it again if they don't like it.
Right.
And then there's some categories like beer, whatever, people don't necessarily even want to buy the same thing.
Yeah.
They want to try a bunch of stuff. So if somebody's just starting out, they kind of have a different set of hurdles than a existing sales and marketing company that's in the food world and the food space already that's creating a new brand. Both are startups, both have different trajectories. So I think it's always best for somebody to start small as they get proof of concept, then engage a professional organization like ours where we can go in and do value engineering.
Sure.
We can make sure that the raw materials are going to be available consistently versus just, they're available now, but then, there's some flood in Sri Lanka. Now you can't get what you need.
Interesting. Yeah.
Usually for us, for our company, it's a more well-established brand that is in quite a few doors already, but they're ready to take it from the next level, grow out of that beginning co-packer. And they need certifications. They need an SQF level 2 facility. Costco says, hey, we're ready for you to do a roadshow, or we want you to do an in-out. Can you please provide your third-party Costco addendum documentation? What's that? People don't, unless you're at a certain level, you don't have those things in the prerequisites for you to grow your brand.
Can you run through that? You mentioned SQF2, I think, and obviously Costco addendum. Like, can you run through maybe some of those certifications? You mentioned like the smaller players just aren't going to, it just doesn't make sense that the cost to get those certifications and maintain them, I'm sure, does not make sense to the, or they just can't do it to have those certifications. So can you mention like some of those big ones at your level that you can provide?
Yeah. So the third party audits, which is under the big umbrella of GFSI. I couldn't tell you what it stands for. Global Food Gummy Bears, whatever. GFSI, under there, there's SQF, and then there's BRC, and they're basically the same thing. It's tell them what you're going to do it, and then document that you did it. It's pretty simple in theory, hard to execute. And it's just something that a smaller co-packer, it's a lot for them to take on. And until you reach a certain amount of revenue where you've got an employee that can essentially own that or have a team that can own that collectively, it's just tough for, somebody who's got, the smaller co-packer owner, and then he's got maybe a couple right-hand men, high school kids that are helping screw caps on or something like that. They're not doing it. So the GFSI certification is something that somebody definitely needs if they're going to expand into all the big retailers. And we did SQF level 2, really high score, 99 out of 100, which is not very common. Our QA gal gets a nice little bonus when that happens. So GFSI insurance comes up a lot, and having the appropriate levels of insurance, because a lot of these bigger companies, they're going to require that you have a certain amount of insurance. And as a brand, you need to have an umbrella policy that protects yourself, just like any business does. But when you get into food, there's other things, recall insurance, and it's expensive. Well, we have that, and we just do additional insured COIs for our customers when they need it. So that box is checked, and that might not be there with a smaller startup co-packer. But as you're starting up, you don't need that.
Yeah.
So smaller co-packers are great. We are great, all for different reasons. And it's just kind of the evolution. Beyond that, a lot of times the big suppliers will have their own audits that have to happen. Obviously, gluten-free certification is one that comes up. Non-GMO project verified certification comes up a ton.
Yep.
We make tons of products that fall into that genre, if you will. That's one of the reasons why we chose Colorado. Big food hub, especially coming out of Boulder, lots of innovation coming out of there. And we chose Hudson, Colorado, which is in the rural plains, because the workforce in it. So really getting a good handle on where you want to be as a brand. And some brands, they'd be a startup, but well, we have to be organic, and we have to be kosher, and we have to be all of these things. But they don't have the scale to really achieve that yet.
Yeah.
So things just kind of need to be as an evolution and get the certifications that you need to check the next box. And when you go with a larger co-packer like us, then all those boxes are already checked.
Yeah.
If you want them to be checked.
No, I love that. And I kind of go back to what you said earlier, right? You got to grab that customer's attention, whether it's on the physical shelf in store or it's,
right.
Again, the Amazon search page, right? You've got to grab their attention. They're going to look at a price point, right? And they're going to decide whether to buy it or not. They don't have no idea what it tastes, unless you're doing like demos right down the aisle. They have no idea what it's going to taste like.
Demos work.
Yeah, absolutely. I know from both working with brands and from the consumer side.
Yeah.
One of the times it picks them up at Costco for just trying something. But you're right. I mean, those are the two big things. And so, that's step one is getting that product market fit, right? And I'd be curious, based on your experience and your vast years of experience, I guess, what are you seeing work now in terms of brands, maybe those brands that are leveling up? Is there anything that's working that didn't work a couple of years ago? It's different than maybe a few years ago in terms of acquiring customers or finding that right or furthering that niche?
I think that the market has a bigger appetite for new ethnic flavors from Thai, Filipino, lots of Asian flavors, a lot of Hispanic flavors, lots of, just tons of otherworldly stuff that we're not necessarily used to. And I think the buyers are trying to be more in tune with those. And I see a lot more churn where they're trying to provide more variety to the customers. Like Costco buyers, they might like this one, but that it's in and out, and they're going to replace it with something that's equally as cool.
Yeah.
And they're providing value for their store, but it's also pretty tough for a brand if they're kind of in and out, especially if they're dealing with Costco. I mean, I've mentioned Costco several times, but a lot of these things apply to other retailers as well.
Sure.
Of course. The bottle types, glass was king for so long. We do tons of glass. We're glass guys, but best in glass. Keep it glassy. Love glass. Long shelf life. It's not necessarily cheaper always to go into plastic, but the biggest argument is breaking, which that's your world for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then customer experience. So Hoi Fong came into the market with a squeeze bottle with what they call those pointed tips a directional tip, because you can direct the sauce where it wants to go. I think the name is stupid. They always say directional. I'm like, okay, it's pointy. They created, especially for chefs, on the line, they can grab the bottle, zip, make pretty deal. There's been a lot of movement towards the plastic bottles with directional lids. You look at Kinders, you look at Bauchons. Those guys are killing it. They have that. Hoi Fong was killing it until they didn't treat their partners right, and they didn't look at it as a collaboration. They looked at it as a transactional thing. That'll be in business studies, I'm sure. I think the customer experience is great. The buyers are always they seem to be very receptive to those new plastic packaging, where glass was always king forever. And then COVID hit and everybody's like, oh yeah, I used to not like plastic, but it's not all bad. It kind of changed. So I don't know. I've seen a huge push to plastic, and plastic comes with a lot of challenges when it comes to manufacturing. I can't give away all of our secrets. It's not the easiest thing to execute. And anyway, those are some of the newer things that are coming on. It seems like buyers are getting the attention more of some of these idea people, even before they have a brand, which is I'm not used to seeing that as well.
When a client comes on board to Motherlode and starts with you guys, walk us through what the process looks like. I mean, obviously they've already got a product established. They're having it co-manufactured elsewhere. What's the timing too? Because that's a whole other thing, right? It's like, hey, I've got, X amount of inventory still left from my last run at my old copacker. Right. And now I want to move to the new copacker. How far in advance do people need to be looking at, moving to a facility like yours where, you can say, okay, we can schedule, because I'm sure you get those calls, right? Where it's like, hey, I need a new copacker and we need to do a run in the next 2 weeks and it's going to be this, this amount. And you're just like, oh, okay, let's pump the brakes.
It happened to me 2 times in the last 4 days.
Exactly. So it's
it
not
was right
uncommon.
before this call.
Yep. So
But yeah, every manufacturer is going to be different. I feel that we are very fast when we need to. And one example is we were approached by 2 customers that were existing customers, but that between the 2 of them, had 5 new products that Walmart agreed to take on nationwide, of which was a concept. There was no formula. This was just like,
oh, wow,
something their marketing department came up with and sold. I love it. But they needed it in like 7 weeks.
Wow.
In store. So in 7 weeks, we had to develop 5 new products, order all the raw materials, and manufacture for launch quantities to Walmart in that period of time. I had paired like you then, and I don't now, but that's to illustrate, like, if the carrot's big enough, you can justify boogieing. But if it's a startup and they're saying, I'm going to get into 30 stores and I need it in 3 weeks, it's like, sorry, that's not.
Yeah.
You're waiting. You're just gonna you're waiting. I'll say this and then I'm gonna back up a little bit. Most of the time, if we have a formula that we've done in our lab and the customer said, hey, this tastes the way that I want it to taste, it is approved. From there to the first production, which is a plant trial, can be a significant quantity, but it's still just our first. That can be 60 to 75 days from the day they say go. Now, everything that happens before that, which is kind of, you were asking about our normal process, the first, we get linked up because either I want to talk to them or they want to talk to me or whatever. We have our first call. I just find out about their company. I usually like to look at their website. They don't have a website that tells me how quick the phone call is going to be.
Yep.
Go have an intro call, give them our paperwork, which is like it outlines our fees, a little 1-pager on who we are, just all that normal stuff, like what labels, our label requirements, how they need to be on a roll, and all of the details on that. It's going to have our production agreement and our non-disclosure agreement in it. The one that I need at the beginning is the non-disclosure agreement first and foremost. The production agreement, if they don't sign that at the beginning, that's cool. I just at least want them to know how I expect to do business with them. The thing that I hate so much is getting in conversations with the company and you get so far down the road and then they start throwing more and more agreements at you. It's like you're totally changing the rules in the middle of the game here.
Yep.
So I would say anybody who's trying to get a relationship with co-packer, get those agreements out of the way at the beginning. And our agreements don't lock anybody into any volume or anything. So once we get the NDA out of the way, I ask the customer to send me over a formula. And a lot of times it's very professional and it's got all the details that I need. And other times it's like a photo of somebody saying, a 1/2 cup vinegar, like what kind of vinegar, how strong, not like barely any information that,
Yeah.
So it's all across the board, but we would get that formula. We would come up with our R&D team, which is what we would come up with a costing worksheet. And on that costing worksheet is going to have some order volume tiers. So if you order this much, if you order this much, if you order this much, our toll, like what we need to make, is listed differently. Higher volume, lower toll.
Yep.
And then we list out the raw materials. And this is where we differ from most co-packers, is we're extremely transparent. So our customer is going to see all of the raw materials that we plan to use and our landed cost per kilogram on all of those, the cost of the bottle, the cost of the lid. So as we kind of navigate the costing, it's very collaborative again. And if our price is high or too high, it's all the tools are in front of us. The equation on how we get to our price is there, and we can all explore collaboratively on how we can bring it down. Oh, well, we got the wrong bottle, or we've got the wrong raw material, and we can problem solve on a line-by-line basis. Once that's agreed upon, then we would do bench tops. So if the customer's good with our ballpark price, then we do bench tops in the lab. They usually labs in the plant. We have all the raw materials. We make up 1 to 3 gallons of liquid for them to help us dial in, lock it in. We're done. Set up the item in our ERP system and then start scheduling those production runs. I'm oversimplifying it, but for the sake of time, it's kind of that flow.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful, I think, for people to visualize like what it looks like, because it's not just saying, giving you a call on the phone and saying, hey, I need to produce, and, even if it's the next couple of months, there is a process to it, and people have to understand that process. Are you guys procuring? I mean, obviously there's general ingredients that work for a lot of different products, right? But then there's obviously very unique ingredients, right? Are those things where you're helping procure those? Is that land of the brand or the company's responsibility? Or do you guys help with that?
So in our space, there's co-packers that just toll.
Yep.
So it's like, give me 70 cents every bottle we produce. You send in the bottles, the lids, the labels. Maybe the co-packer would do toll and they're using their tape on the boxes. It's just like, basically they're not providing anything. A lot of those co-packers, I just haven't seen that model work very well. And a lot of times those are like a relationship. They're more old school, unique relationships with more legacy brands.
Yeah.
And I think that way of doing it's kind of gone to the wayside, but especially after COVID, because all the prices, there was such stochastic movement in pricing. It was very difficult for somebody who had even like a set price. Like, here's your price. We are going to sell every bottle of 2024 at $1.27.
Yeah.
All included. Well, when those prices fluctuated, a lot of those co-packers went out of business.
Yeah.
And because they didn't have any, so with our model, it's a fluid thing, and we just work with our customers to take the fluidity out. And that's by them using their forecasted volume so that we can contract based off of that volume. So their risk is a lot less because they're only contracting certain key raw materials that would be deemed kind of high risk versus contracting a certain amount of production. So again, I could go on and on about this stuff for hours, but there's just a lot better way to skin the cat these days. And it all starts with transparency. You just have to be transparent so you can have very informed and educated conversations, because so many people come up to me at trade shows and they say, we hate our co-packer. We have no idea. We got this price increase. There's no explanation why. It's just like, here's your price increase.
Yeah.
You got to have trust with the people that you're either, we have to have trust with the companies that we're working with, and they have to have trust with us, and all of that goes back down to transparency for sure.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you mentioned, it's kind of like the good old boy, way of doing business. Like, oh, he's this guy uses them, I'm going to use them, or he seems like a good guy, or, they're going to give me this one flat price. It's hard to, even in, just today's age of technology and information sharing, right? It's like, there's a lot of transparent stuff out there in terms of pricing and just like more information. And so brands, companies want to know, like, why am I, like, what is this? And how does this work? And, and it's easier, I agree, to be much more transparent. And you talk about the relationship aspect where it's not just a transaction like you were talking about at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Right?
So our bid would have lined out all the different things, and then the equation is in the spreadsheet that we've shared. So our customers could even change the variables to see, how their price would change with that. And, we look at ourselves as a turnkey manufacturer. So our toll is built in, and then we charge for the raw materials, and the raw materials have a markup to cover things like scrap, which they would be covering. If they provide the raw materials, the scrap would be on them anyway.
Yep.
So we're just capturing that scrap and capturing margin on top of that to cover our time to manage the process.
Yep.
And we look at the delta between the two, the actual cost and the markup, as a function of our toll that does fluctuate with the market. That's kind of how we look at it. Most of the time, our customers just provide labels and we provide everything else. But we also have lots of customers that we just provide everything for. It's usually the bigger customers, we're providing everything. And then if somebody's kind of starting off, they're going to be doing a lot of label edits. Inevitably there's a typo. They want to change the color to the new Pantone color of the year. Whatever they're doing. Yep. It's usually best to have the emerging brands provide their own labels. But beyond that, I mean, if somebody's got like bourbon barrel aged, beetle kill wood, black pepper, some weird stuff. It's like, just send that to me. I don't want to be involved with that.
Yeah.
Or importing like raw materials. Like if there's a special pepper from Peru or something, it's like
that's on you.
I can buy it from an existing supplier, then I'll bring it in.
That makes sense. As brands grow with you, right? So they start with you, and as they grow with you, like, what are some things you've seen work really well for brands that help grow that relationship between, Motherlode and your clients, where it is that, expands that collaborative nature of the relationship?
If a customer starts with us and they're kind of below our normal threshold, we almost expect the growth, and we all have to work towards that. And the more that we make products, the more we get accustomed to those raw materials that might be driving costs, so that we can work, like I mentioned earlier, on getting the raw material prices down. So that happens as brands evolve. A lot of the problems when you launch a product are always at the very beginning. And once you get it figured out, it's like it's kind of done. So the longer you run something and the frequency in which you run it, if I run that Bubba Joe guy, if I'm only running his product once a year, we're not going to be near as good as that as we are something that we run all the time. All our parameters are captured in the system. Like, there's no reason why we can't replicate it. We just can't replicate it with as much ease as if it was something that we run all the time. So with running more frequently, it helps us out on our end on being a better manufacturer. Yeah, it's a good question. I think as brands deal with different companies that they sell their products into, a lot of times we've already got all the paperwork done ahead of time. So that helps us on the flywheel. Now, I can't really help them sell.
Yep.
But what we can do is try to hold them accountable on getting us forecasts every month that gives us like a quarter or more look into the future.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do it. Forecasting sucks. Forecasting's so bad. But it's something that gives us an ability to have educated conversations with our raw material suppliers. And startup brands it's not that they don't want to, or that they don't have the ability to, or like the mental capacity to do it. I think everybody knows how to do it or whatever. It's just they just don't have enough reliable volume to be able to forecast effectively. And as brands grow, they can do that more, and it just makes things work so much more smooth. They can be, approached by a supplier that says, hey, we want to put you on end caps in 1,500 stores. Can you do this? But we need it in, 35 days. The companies that are set up and more tenured with their contract manufacturer are going to be able to execute on those quick turnaround requests, where somebody's just starting off, that it makes it, it's so hard to do it that way. Not impossible, but the longevity that you have with the copacker is certainly of value. And, brands come to me, I had one this morning, they're like, yeah, we're looking for a new copacker. We're on our fourth. I'm like,
it's always a red flag, right? It's like, okay, maybe it's not the copacker.
Yeah. So they're not really taking advantage. There's tons of reasons to leave a copacker. I even mentioned at the beginning, start small. You can evolve, but 4 is a lot. 4 is a lot for a 3-year-old company. So it does mean a lot. It's all, things like that are almost like a resume, because believe it or not, copackers are interviewing you just as much.
Yeah, because you want to make sure the brand has the tools and they have the talent and the product on their side to be able to, you don't want to do just one big run for somebody. You want to do a big run now, in the first run, and then you want to keep growing that indefinitely, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess leave us with maybe just, to obviously name the name, but just maybe a brand that you just think is a great success story, just like how they were able to work with you guys in that collaborative mindset, in that relationship, and really help them grow throughout. Is there one that comes to mind?
There's one that had a lot of wind in their sails, but they ran out of cash, and they were very forthcoming with us on that. And we were able, one of the other things that we do is we've got a large network of resources for funding. Good. And I'm not talking about just like factoring or things like, PO financings like that, but which we also do, but we're not a bank.
If you have to try to remind people that sometimes.
We're not a bank. Yeah. So that, but we've also got a network, almost 40 family offices, high net worth individuals, some PE firms, and we've been able to raise millions and millions of dollars for brands that otherwise wouldn't have been able to do those national expansions.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly a success story, because we were able to figure out the solution to a problem that was presented to us by our brand, or not our brand, a brand that springboarded it. I think focusing on innovation and constantly being able to present the new next best thing within a brand that's already in the market, it's easy for them to go to the same buyers and sell something different.
Yep.
And they got to get rid of the dogs. If they're not performing, get rid of them. Don't type your inventory dollars in things that aren't moving. That's one thing. It was a sales guy. I had a beer brand in 2015 with our COO. We've done too many companies together. But we hired a sales guy who's a smart guy, very tenured. I didn't really like the guy, but he told me, don't fall in love with your brand. And at the time, I didn't really understand what he was saying, but I definitely get it now because it was in the context of artwork that we had on the can, and he felt one way about it. We felt differently. I still think we had the right idea. But what he was trying to say is if people want something different out of your brand, as in the mass, not Debbie Joe.
Yep.
Like if the masses want something different out of your brand, and I see so many brands just try to square peg round hole things. You know, they've got their niece who just graduated from high school doing their label design. Like, nobody cares about your damn dog. Don't put your dog on a label. Like, you know, it's just, the chef mindset. Love chefs, generally not great business people. They get too caught up in the art of sauce manufacturing. Yeah. And as an example, I'm not trying to throw all chefs under the bus, but a lot of times they'll get caught up in the process and not the end result, or they'll pick a raw material that might mean a lot to them that could be replaced with a even more high quality raw material, but yet less expensive and more consistent and more readily available. And there's just not a lot of, there could be big misses on the engineering of products because you're just in love with something and you assign too high of a value on that one thing that doesn't really have any value to the end consumer. That's a big one. I see lots of that.
And we see a lot of that too. It's easy just in general business. I mean, I do it too with our business probably sometimes. We get these blinders on and, you know, you say we have to do this or we're this way. And then it's like, yes, to a point, but then there's like these, you know, I always say, you know, these are solvable problems that we're having. Right. Like we're not the first business to encounter this. Like there have been a limited amount of businesses that have overcome this problem or this issue or had this same thing happen. So I think it's sometimes loosening that control in those reins and just like letting it go where it needs to go for it to succeed. Because otherwise what happens is that you have those brands that are so tight on and not willing to give up control of the ingredients or whether it's, you know, the label. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, you kind of, that's it. That's all there is.
It's kind of welcome to mediocrity. And you got to be, I mean, a lot of it's just luck, you know, luck, who you know,
timing. Yeah.
Timing. I mean, there's been plenty of times where products were made 3 years before they needed to be made.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, or they did it 3 years before and they didn't stick with it for that 3 year period of time and they gave up.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no right way to do it.
No, there's not. There's plenty of wrong ways to do it, but there's no right way to do it.
Exactly. To get a bunch of money, that helps.
Yeah.
Money solves most problems.
Yes, it does. So, Kit, to kind of wrap things up here, is there like one or two pieces of advice for brands that are either starting out or maybe they're with that smaller contract manufacturer, copacker now, and they're looking to go to somebody like Motherlode? Like just in general, like what one or two pieces of advice you could offer to those individuals?
Different people get into the business for different reasons. I've always been one, if you're going to start a company, do something that's just going to be as big as you possibly can ever imagine. I think a lot of times people don't think big. Sometimes people just have a passion brand, you know, fills their bucket, and that's cool too. We're not talking about those folks, but just try to think as big as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And again, don't fall in love with your brand. Make sure that you make very smart, strategic decisions and try to make it to where it matches the manufacturing that you have access to. You know, people doing like silly shaped bottles that you can't run very quickly. Probably maybe when you grow bigger and you can automate it and make it go faster, that's a good idea. But I've seen a lot of missteps on that. I've seen a lot of missteps on not understanding the buildbacks that they're going to be getting and the cost it actually takes to grow. Undercapitalization is probably the biggest thing. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of money to launch a brand, especially and not to do farmers markets and not to get into the local grocery store chain that's in your city. But if you're really making a big thing of it, you know, you've got to have enough money to be able to do it. There's a lot of snakes in the grass, and it's, if you have a partner that's seen it before, it helps you avoid a lot of those. And if your co-packer isn't helping you out with those, you're going to basically either get lucky or you're going to realize and find those yourself. So, you know, a lot of times these CPG consulting groups can be helpful for these brands because we do it at Motherlode. We do what CPG consulting groups for these brands do already for them. It's just kind of part of our suite of services.
Yeah.
But brands that are like looking to try to make a jump from one co-packer to another, it might be worthwhile to engage one of those companies to make sure that they're speaking for them and making sure that they have their best interest in mind, acting as a fiduciary for them, so they're not going through those pains and pitfalls, like, you know, making a custom box for every individual flavor.
Yeah.
You know, there are just so many things that, I mean, the list goes on and on of things not to do. But then again, I see some people that are just so stubborn, they do it anyway and they succeed. So, you know, what do I know?
I mean, to kind of put a bow on all that, I mean, I think, you know, you're demonstrating right now, like, the value of working with you and your company, you know, Motherlode, and you get a lot of just, you know, you get on a call with somebody, you're not just gonna, you know, obviously you want to see if, you know, you're mutual fit, right? Same kind of thing we do, but you're also going to tell them, like, oh no, don't do that. Like, if they mentioned, you know, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, it's like, right, okay, well, just FYI, here's what's going to happen if you do that.
Yep.
Or you're taking them 6 months or you're down the road, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that. So there's a tremendous value of working with companies like yourself and a person like you, because you're just going to know that stuff. You're just going to, for the benefit of the relationship, you know, point those things out to them, help them along the way, right?
Yep. We want them to sell more bottles, and sometimes those shiny things can be distracting for sure. But again, I've been wrong too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after you've seen the same show over and over again, you're like, I know how that's going to end.
Yep. For sure. But obviously we've both seen too, a lot of companies that were just like, you know, you kind of know in the back of your mind, like, I think this is good. This is going to go places, and it doesn't. Those are almost like just as, you know, those are great to see. So
yeah, I had one, and our product development guy called me. He's so excited about it. It was with an influencer. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do anything. And it actually ended up doing pretty well.
Yeah. Yep.
I was not wrong, or I was not correct on that one. I was very wrong.
Yeah. Well, now you know, but now you've got the little, you know, piece of knowledge in your head to pass, you know, to put the big formula in your head of, like, you know, this is what works, what doesn't, and
exactly
and that kind of stuff. So that's all it is. So, well, Kit, this has been a tremendous conversation. I mean, I feel like, just as you said, you could have, and I feel like I could ask you a ton more questions about, you know, co-packing and, you know, contract manufacturing, all that. So maybe we'll have to again as a guest in the future just to cover some of that stuff. But a tremendous value. Thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Ryan. Good talking to you.
All right. That was a fantastic episode. Thanks so much to Kit Maxfield from Motherlode Co-packing for coming on the show. Again, offered tremendous value, just a lot of inside expertise of what he's seen, what works, what doesn't work. And as we both acknowledge, sometimes there's just things that happen and work for a brand, and, you know, those are great to see and share as well. But hopefully, you know, you've got a ton of insight and value from some of the information that Kit provided. And if you are looking for, you know, a co-packer and a new co-packer, definitely hit them up on their website and reach out to Kit and have a conversation and see if it's a fit. So again, hopefully you got a ton of value from this episode. And this is how we grow this podcast, is you're getting value and you just, you know, engaging with us, whether that's liking it, subscribing, sharing, all the things you can do on all the platforms. Wherever you're listening or watching this, please do that. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, whatever it may take. Leave a quick comment. And just let us know what you thought about today's episode. And that's how we grow this, and we really appreciate it. So we appreciate that, and we will see you on the next episode of the Expert CPG Commerce Podcast.